The Cipher of Silence. Chapter 1. The Message That Shouldn't Exist. Arlington, Virginia, December 14th, 1943. Rain hammered the tin roof of Arlington Hall as if the sky itself were trying to send a message. Inside the former girls' school turned secret code-breaking facility, the air smelled of coffee, carbon paper, and tension. Rows of analysts bent over cipher machines and decrypted Japanese naval transmissions, their fingers flying across typewriters like soldiers in combat. Evelyn Carter had been at her desk for 11 hours straight. Her brown hair was tied back, her sleeves rolled up, and a half-burned Lucky Strike smoldered in an ashtray beside the Enigma prints. Most nights she could lose herself in the rhythm. Pattern, decrypt, discard. But tonight something refused to fit. A 5-line fragment had arrived from a naval intercept near Guam. It bore a JN-25 encryption signature, the Japanese Navy's operational code. But something was wrong. The pattern didn't match any variation of JN-25 known to Allied codebreakers. She frowned. That's impossible. Everything's impossible until it isn't, said Lieutenant Brooks, the section chief, passing by with a cup of black coffee. You'll crack it, Carter. You always do. But as he moved on, Evelyn saw it again, a repeating sequence buried within the nonsense. AXR 7142, PHX. It wasn't Japanese. It was English. And not just English, it followed the internal coding format used by the U.S. Army Signal Corps. Her heart began to pound. A U.S. transmission embedded inside an enemy cipher. She pulled the intercept log. The transmission's origin was listed as unknown. The date header was 4 days ahead. She whispered, "What the hell is this?" Evelyn printed the decrypt and ran it through a secondary filter, isolating the anomaly. The text fragment that emerged chilled her. Project Phoenix active. Priority redacted. Silence imperative. Phoenix. She'd heard the word once before, whispered in the Arlington mess hall. An off-the-books weapons project in the Pacific, rumored to be tied to Los Alamos, long before the Manhattan Project became public knowledge. She stared at the timestamp. December 18th, 1943, 4 days in the future. Her first instinct was to take it to Brooks. Her second, the one that whispered survival, told her not to. If this message was what she thought it was, it hadn't come through the normal channels. Someone had hidden it inside an enemy cipher, and whoever sent it didn't want it traced. She slipped the decrypt into her pocket. At 11:57 p.m., she left Arlington Hall, the cold wind slicing through her overcoat. The streetlights flickered under the fog. Across the Potomac, Washington was dark, blackout protocols still in effect. She walked quickly toward her boarding house, boots splashing through puddles. Behind her, a black sedan idled at the corner, its headlights dimmed on wet asphalt, then turned the corner and vanished. Evelyn exhaled slowly. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just the OSS keeping tabs. Or maybe someone already knew she'd seen too much. Upstairs, she laid the decrypt on her desk. The name Phoenix stared up at her like a ghost. She reached for her notebook, flipping through pages of intercepted code structures. There it was again, a fragment she'd ignored last week in another message from the Solomon Islands. PX7142. Same route pattern, same sequence, different war zone. Evelyn lit another cigarette and stared at the window. Outside, the rain fell harder, drumming against the glass like Morse code. She tapped the ash into a tin tray, feeling that strange spark that came right before discovery, the same feeling that had gotten her recruited from MIT 2 years earlier. Somewhere in the Pacific, someone was transmitting in Allied format through Japanese channels and using a project name no one was supposed to know. Pearl Harbor Naval Base, Hawaii, 2,400 miles west. Commander Jack Monroe tossed the decoded sheet onto his desk, jaw tightening. "Who the hell sent this?" The comms officer shrugged. "No idea, sir. It came from a ghost frequency, unregistered, scrambled beyond protocol, but it's using our encryption layer." He leaned back, eyes narrowing on the same line Evelyn had seen across the continent. Project Phoenix active. Priority redacted. Silence imperative. Get me OSS Field Command and tell them to scramble a courier to Washington. Washington, 2 days later. Evelyn arrived at her desk to find her access card deactivated. Her drawers were empty. Brooks was gone. A security officer waited by her chair, expression flat. "Miss Carter, you've been reassigned." She blinked. Reassigned? To where? He handed her a sealed envelope stamped "Top Secret, Eyes Only." Inside was a single line. "Report to Building 32, Naval Research Lab, 0600 hours." And below it, in red ink, "Project Phoenix, clearance granted." Chapter 2. The Pacific Ghost. Naval Research Laboratory, Washington, D.C., December 16, 1943. The sun had barely risen when Evelyn reached Building 32. A military guard checked her ID twice, then escorted her through a corridor humming with electricity and secrecy. The air smelled of ozone and hot metal. Down the hall, technicians in white coats worked on racks of prototype radio sets, oscilloscopes glowing faint green. The war had turned this place into the nerve center of American innovation. Radar, sonar, encryption, all converging here under classified umbrellas. A brass nameplate outside a secure room read, "Commander J. Monroe, Pacific Operations." The door opened before she could knock. "Ms. Carter, you've been busy." Commander Jack Monroe was taller than she expected. Mid-30s, with sharp blue eyes and a scar running along his jaw. The kind of man who carried secrets like they were part of his uniform. He gestured to a chair. "Sit. You've stumbled onto something you weren't supposed to see." "I didn't stumble. Someone hid that message deliberately. The question is, why?" Monroe studied her for a long moment, then slid a folder across the table. The cover was stamped "Project Phoenix, Restricted." Inside were aerial photos of a small island, a volcanic crescent somewhere in the Pacific. The coordinates had been blacked out. "This is codenamed Isla Ray," he said. "Officially, it doesn't exist. It's an experimental site, shared jurisdiction between the Navy and a joint scientific task force operating out of Los Alamos." Evelyn frowned. "Los Alamos? That's New Mexico. What are physicists doing in the Pacific?" He didn't answer directly. "Phoenix was designed to give us an edge before the enemy can think of the next war. Beyond code, beyond bombs." She flipped another page. A schematic of something that looked like a communications relay, but with impossible parameters. Power output, classified. Source, unknown. Then a photo, blurred, black and white. A row of men in Navy uniforms standing beside a cylindrical structure half buried in volcanic rock. One man's face had been scratched out. Monroe tapped the image. This man, the one redacted, was Dr. Alan Frost, brilliant physicist. Vanished 3 months ago. Vanished where? Right after he sent an encrypted transmission identical to the one you intercepted. Evelyn's pulse quickened. "Do you think he's still alive?" Monroe leaned back. "That's what we're going to find out. You're being assigned to the Phoenix Decrypt Unit. You'll work out of Honolulu first. Then, if command approves, you'll transfer to the island." "Why me?" she asked. "Because whoever cracked that message wants you to follow it." He stood, ending the conversation. "Transport leaves at 00400. Pack light." Honolulu, Hawaii, 4 days later. The flight from D.C. had been long and turbulent. By the time Evelyn stepped off the transport plane, the humid Pacific air hit her like a wave. Palm trees swayed against a blood-red sunset. Soldiers shouted orders, jeeps rattled across the tarmac, and the faint smell of diesel mixed with sea salt. Lieutenant Brooks was waiting, but not the same Brooks she remembered. His uniform bore new insignia, his smile a shade too controlled. "Welcome to paradise," he said. "Come on, we'll brief you at Naval Station Pearl Harbor." In the jeep, she asked, "How long have you been here?" 2 months, since Phoenix was relocated offshore." "So it's real," she said quietly. Brooks didn't answer. He only said, "The fewer questions you ask, the longer you'll last." Pearl Harbor Intelligence Wing. A low-ceilinged room filled with humming machines and cigarette smoke. Maps of the Pacific were pinned across the walls, marked with red strings and code identifiers. Major Elsie Tran, head of the Decrypt Division, handed Evelyn a stack of intercepts. She said, "These came through an hour ago. Same pattern as your DC message, all carrying partial fragments of the same phrase." She read them aloud. "Sequence complete. Test protocol Aurora. Silence imperative." "Aurora," she said. "Another code name?" Tran nodded grimly. "We don't know yet, but intelligence thinks it's connected to a signal anomaly we've been picking up from the Phoenix site. Radio bursts, like echoes, repeating every 11 hours. Evelyn stared at the frequency readout. The signal wasn't random. It was structured, binary sequences repeating in prime number intervals, too deliberate to be natural. "What happens every 11 hours?" she asked. Tran looked her dead in the eye. "Something wakes up." Isla Rey, classified coordinates, December 27, 1943. The Navy seaplane roared low over the Pacific before banking hard toward a black smudge on the horizon. The island looked lifeless, jagged cliffs, volcanic ash, no vegetation. From the air, Evelyn saw what looked like antenna arrays embedded into the rock, but unlike any design she knew. Circular formations, concentric rings, radiating outward like ripples in stone. The pilot, a young ensign, shouted over the engine noise. They built a whole base inside the crater, like something out of science fiction. As the plane touched down on a makeshift water runway, armed guards appeared along the shore. A jeep waited by the dock. A tall man in a khaki uniform stepped forward. "Commander Monroe," he said, "welcome to Phoenix." Inside the base, the air was heavy with the scent of oil and hot machinery. Scientists moved through narrow corridors, their faces drawn and pale. Evelyn noticed every door required triple clearance. They passed through a steel arch marked Project Phoenix, Test Chamber. Monroe stopped before a viewing window. "You wanted to know what Frost was working on?" Below them, a cavern glowed with blue light. In its center stood a massive structure, a tower of coiled metal and crystalline plates, humming with energy. Evelyn felt the hair rise on her arms. "Is that a transmitter?" Monroe's voice was low. "It's a resonance device. Frost called it the echo engine. He believed it could communicate across distances faster than radio, possibly across time." She turned to him, stunned. "Across time?" Monroe met her eyes. "Before you dismiss it, You should know the first test succeeded. They received a transmission. Evelyn's voice barely came out. From who? Monroe handed her a transcript. The ink was smudged, but the words were clear. This is Dr. Alan Frost. If you're reading this, shut it down. Phoenix isn't what we thought. It's listening to us.
Chapter 3. The Echo Engine. Isla Ray, December 27, 1943, 2300 hours. The underground chamber pulsed with an unearthly blue glow. Evelyn stood before the massive structure, the Echo Engine, its surface rippling faintly as if breathing. Cables as thick as a man's arm fed into it, humming with power drawn from a diesel generator somewhere deep in the tunnels. She couldn't look away. The machine was hypnotic, both beautiful and terrifying. Dr. Aaron Keller, one of the physicists on site, adjusted his glasses nervously beside her. Frost designed this based on Tesla's unpublished oscillation papers, he said. But he added something no one can account for. He called it the resonant feedback loop. Theoretically, it amplifies any signal to infinity, then folds it back into itself. Evelyn frowned. Meaning? Meaning, Keller said softly. It might not just transmit messages. It might receive them from points in space or time where those frequencies already exist. Evelyn's skin prickled. And you tested this? He nodded grimly. Twice. Both times the equipment registered returning data. Structured data, not echoes. Monroe stepped into the control room, his expression hard. The next test is scheduled for 0100 hours. You'll monitor the incoming signal layer, Carter. We need you to confirm if the binary patterns correspond to the same signature Frost used. Evelyn turned toward him. You're restarting it? After Frost said to shut it down? It's orders from Washington, he said flatly. They want results. The war's changing, and if this thing gives us an advantage, we don't have the luxury of fear. Evelyn stared through the glass at the glowing tower. Commander, you don't even know what it's listening to. Monroe met her eyes. No, but we're going to find out. 0052 hours. Technicians scrambled at their consoles, calibrating oscilloscopes and frequency dials. The air was heavy with tension and heat. The countdown clock ticked toward the next activation sequence. Evelyn sat before her monitoring station, heart pounding. Binary data began streaming across the paper feed, thousands of zeros and ones cascading faster than her eyes could follow. Stabilizing power input, Keller shouted. Voltage holding steady. Signal amplitude at 98%, another voice called. Then a low hum filled the chamber. The echo engine's core began to shimmer, the blue light deepening to violet. The hum shifted into a tone, almost musical, like a deep chord resonating from the center of the earth. Evelyn froze. That frequency! Keller looked up. You hear it too? The sound wasn't coming from the machine. It was coming through it. Then the paper feed jammed. Evelyn yanked it free and stared at the printed sequence. Amid the binary chaos, English letters began appearing, faint, uneven, as if etched by invisible hands. EVELYN, STOP, test, NOT, A, SIGNAL, A, RESPONSE. Her breath caught. It's talking back. The hum deepened. The lights flickered. Power surge! Keller yelled. Shut it down! Monroe slammed his fist on the emergency cutoff. Sparks erupted from the control panel. The entire base went dark. For 10 seconds, there was only the sound of metal cooling and the faint echo of the machine's dying pulse. Then, in the silence, came a single knock, slow, deliberate, echoing from somewhere inside the chamber wall. Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. "Did anyone else hear that?" No one answered. 0320 hours. The backup generators restored minimal lighting. The air smelled of burnt insulation. Monroe ordered all personnel to stand down until morning. Evelyn stayed behind, reviewing the intercepted printout. The binary lines repeated the same pattern over and over. 7142, the Phoenix signature she'd first seen in Washington. But embedded within it, the decoded letters spelled out something new. "He's still here." She stared at the words until her vision blurred. Dr. Frost, the man who vanished. Monroe re-entered quietly. "You should get some rest." She looked up. "Commander, that signal mentioned my name. How would it know who I am?" He hesitated. "That's classified." "Classified?" she snapped. "Something inside that machine addressed me directly." Monroe's voice dropped. Frost programmed the feedback loop to recognize key personnel. Before he disappeared, he entered a short list of names into the system. Yours was one of them. Evelyn felt her stomach turn cold. "Why me? I didn't even know him." "Apparently, he knew you." He paused, then handed her a photo. It showed a group of scientists standing beside Frost months earlier. In the background, barely visible, was Evelyn herself, working at an Arlington console. That was taken the day before he vanished, and Frost wasn't scheduled to be in D.C. Evelyn swallowed. "He was watching me." Monroe nodded grimly. "And now, apparently, something else is." Later that morning, the island was eerily quiet. The ocean pounded against the volcanic cliffs outside like a drumbeat. Evelyn wandered through the corridor leading back to the control chamber. The hum was gone, but faint static still lingered in the air, like invisible dust. On the viewing glass, condensation had formed overnight. As she drew closer, her heart stopped. There were words scrawled into the fog, 5 simple letters written from inside the chamber. EVELYN. She stepped back, pulse racing. "Commander!" Monroe and Keller arrived seconds later. Monroe froze when he saw it. "Jesus Christ!" "No one's been in there since last night," Keller whispered. Evelyn's voice trembled. "Then who wrote it?" "Honolulu Command, Emergency Transmission, December 28th, 1943. At 1400 hours, a coded message left Isla Ray under urgent clearance. It was short, encrypted, and classified. The decrypted summary read, "PHOEX device compromised. Transmission origin unknown. Recommend immediate lockdown. Possible psychological infiltration via resonance frequency. Subject Carter shows direct correlation to feedback signal." Underneath the report, Monroe's signature appeared, and a single handwritten note. "If Frost is still alive, he's not on this island." Isla Ray, that night. Evelyn couldn't sleep. The noise had returned, soft at first, then rising like a whisper through the vents, words buried in static. She sat up, clutching her notebook, and listened. Beneath the hum, a faint male voice murmured, "Don't trust Monroe. PHOENX isn't a weapon." Her blood ran cold. "Dr. Frost?" she whispered. The whisper stopped. Then another sound, a distant metallic clang echoing through the corridors. She grabbed her flashlight and followed it. The base seemed deserted, everyone asleep or pretending to be. The sound led her to a sealed maintenance door behind the generator room. A faded sign read, Authorized personnel only. The lock had been broken from the inside. Evelyn pulled the door open and saw a narrow stairway descending into darkness. A gust of hot air rushed up, smelling of ozone and rust. She took a deep breath, then stepped down. Chapter 4. The Chamber Below. Isla Rey, December 28, 1943, 02-100 hours. The stairwell was narrow, carved into volcanic rock, the air thick with heat and the smell of iron. Evelyn descended carefully, one hand on the cold stone wall, the beam of her flashlight cutting through the dark. Every few feet, she passed old wiring conduits, some live, some cut, all humming faintly. The deeper she went, the louder the hum grew. It wasn't the mechanical vibration of machinery. It was something more like a low, living resonance that pressed against her chest. Halfway down, she found an old sign, almost corroded away. Section D, Research Archive. She frowned. Monroe hadn't mentioned any Section D.
At the bottom of the stairs stood a rusted blast door, slightly ajar. Someone had forced it open recently. The hinges were still warm. Evelyn slipped through and found herself in a massive chamber that hadn't seen light in years. Her flashlight beam caught a row of sealed containers labeled Phoenix, Phase 1. Dust drifted like smoke in the air. She opened the nearest crate. Inside lay stacks of reel-to-reel recordings, notebooks, and blueprints. On the top of one binder was a single line: Project Phoenix, initiated 1932, Munich collaboration. Evelyn froze. 1932. That was nearly a decade before the war began, and Munich meant pre-Nazi Germany. She flipped through the yellowed pages. The diagrams weren't communications devices. They were energy studies, frequency resonance patterns tied to something labeled the Schumann cycle. Notes scribbled in German ran along the margins, alongside American signatures. One name appeared again and again: Dr. Alan Frost. He'd been working on Phoenix before Hitler rose to power. Evelyn whispered, "My God, this wasn't a war project. It started before the war even existed." A faint noise echoed from the far end of the chamber, a metallic scrape, followed by a slow, deliberate step. She killed her flashlight instantly and ducked behind a crate, heart hammering. The footsteps came closer, echoing across the stone. Then a beam of light swept across the room. A man's voice said quietly, "I know you're there." Evelyn gripped the flashlight like a weapon, ready to swing. The light steadied on her. "Relax, Carter. It's me." Commander Monroe stepped out of the shadows, his face grim, sweat glinting at his temples. "How did you—" "I followed you," he said. "When I saw your quarters were empty, I had a feeling you'd find this place." He glanced around the chamber, scanning the crates and old blueprints. "You shouldn't have come down here." Evelyn stood. "Then tell me what this is. This project predates the war. It's not American, is it?" Monroe hesitated, then sighed. "It started as a collaboration. Scientists from the US, Germany, and Japan before everything fell apart. They were trying to harness Earth's electromagnetic resonance as a communication channel. Frost was one of the few who understood it. When the Nazis took power, the project was buried. We recovered what was left." She shook her head. "But why build this machine now? Why revive it?" He looked at her sharply. "Because someone else already had. The Japanese intercepted fragments of the early research. We couldn't risk them perfecting it first. So we built our own version." "Exactly. But something went wrong when Frost restarted it. After the second test, people started hearing things, voices, Names, messages that hadn't been sent. Voices from where? Monroe's jaw tightened. That's the question Frost never answered. Evelyn turned to the reel-to-reel recorders. The labels were handwritten in Frost's messy scrawl. Test 1, 1937. Test 2, 1941. Test 3, Isla Ray. She threaded one of the tapes into an old player on a nearby table, hoping it still worked. With a sputter and hiss, the machine came to life. Static filled the room, then a man's voice, calm, precise, unmistakably Frost's. Day 14 of test sequence. The engine responds to pattern 7142, our calibration number. Signal feedback is increasing exponentially. It's not reflecting our transmission. It's anticipating it, as if it already knows what we'll send next. A pause, then more quietly. If this message is ever found, understand that Phoenix is not an invention. It's a discovery. Evelyn's skin crawled. Monroe stared at the recorder, unmoving. Discovery of what? She asked. Frost's recorded voice answered as if on cue. Something older than us. Something that listens. The tape cut off in a shriek of static. The hum around them deepened, resonating through the walls. Dust sifted down from the ceiling. Monroe drew his pistol. We're leaving. But Evelyn was still staring at the tape recorder. The reels were still spinning, though the tape had run out. And from the empty speakers came a whisper, low and wet and human. Evelyn, I told you to stop. The flashlight flickered. Commander, she whispered, please tell me you heard that. Monroe's voice was tight. Move. They ran for the stairs, the hum chasing them upward. The sound grew sharper, resolving into something almost like Morse code tapping through the metal walls. As they reached the upper level, the blast door slammed shut behind them with a thunderous clang. Evelyn turned. The lights down the stairwell flared bright white, and for an instant she saw a silhouette standing at the bottom. A tall man, still, watching. Later, command briefing room. Evelyn sat across from Monroe, shaking. That was Frost. I saw him. You saw something, Monroe said. But Frost's body was never recovered. He could have... She cut him off. No, it wasn't just him. The signal's connected to the island itself. The frequency, it resonates with the volcanic bedrock. That's why the energy keeps feeding back. The island is amplifying the signal. You're saying the island is alive? I'm saying it's responding. He rubbed his temple, thinking. We'll have to inform command, but if you're right... She finished for him. Then whatever Phoenix awakened, we can't shut it down anymore. Monroe looked up at her, expression unreadable. Then God help us. Meanwhile, Pacific Command, Pearl Harbor, a Navy operator received an unscheduled burst transmission from Isla Ray's restricted channel. It was brief, only 12 seconds, but the pattern was unmistakable. When decrypted, the message read, Phoenix, complete. Test cycle 4 initiated. No human input detected. The operator stared at the paper and ran it straight to the intelligence officer on duty. By the time the report reached Washington, the transmission was already repeating every 11 hours. Chapter 5, Cycle 4. Pearl Harbor Naval Intelligence Wing, December 29, 1943. The teletype bell rang 3 times, an emergency priority signal from Isla Ray. Major Elsie Tran snatched the paper before it even hit the tray. Phoenix complete. Test cycle 4 initiated. No human input detected. She read it twice, her stomach tightening. Cycle 4 wasn't scheduled. No one on site had clearance to run it autonomously. That meant the machine was running itself. She turned to the duty operator. "Patch me through to Naval Research, Washington. Priority 1. Washington, D.C., Naval Research Laboratory. Commander Jack Monroe's voice crackled through the line. "Say that again, Major?" "Sir, the Phoenix device reactivated without authorization. The island's power draw just spiked to double capacity. They're registering broadcast emissions across multiple bands, shortwave, VLF, even radar frequencies." Monroe's knuckles whitened around the receiver. "That shouldn't be possible." "Exactly, sir. It's transmitting on military frequencies. Ours." Isla Ray, the control chamber. The echo engine roared alive. Blue light poured from the core, bathing the chamber walls. Evelyn shielded her eyes as the oscilloscopes overloaded. Every instrument needle slammed hard to the right. Keller shouted over the noise. "It's drawing power from the auxiliary grid. The generator can't handle this." Monroe barked, "Kill the breakers." "Already tried. They're fused." Evelyn stared at the primary display, a rotating spectrogram showing the signal output. Amid the chaos, she saw the modulation pattern, bursts separated by exact intervals. She scribbled them onto her pad. P, H, O, E, N, I, X. Monroe leaned over. "That Morse?" Evelyn nodded slowly. P, H, O, E, N, I, X. The machine was broadcasting its own name. Washington, 0400 hours. In a cramped basement office of the Signal Intelligence Service, 2 analysts reviewed intercepted frequencies from the Pacific. One, Lieutenant Howard Finch, tapped his pen against the chart. "This line here, same range as the Japanese Navy's long-range comms, but look at the pulse signature." His partner frowned. "That's American modulation. Who's sending this?" Finch shrugged. "Whoever it is, they're doing it from somewhere near the Marshalls. Power output is off the charts, 10 times any standard transmitter." They filed the report under experimental, pending verification. It would take another day before it reached the president's science liaison. By then, Isla Ray might already be gone. Isla Ray, 0430 hours. Evelyn's team fought to stabilize the system. The generator room was an inferno of heat and noise. Technicians dumped buckets of seawater onto the coils to keep them from melting. Then, suddenly, silence. The lights dimmed. The hum died. Keller exhaled. Power's gone. But the oscilloscope screen still glowed, faintly, impossibly, running on no current at all. A single phrase appeared in green trace across the display. "Test cycle 4 complete. Target received." Evelyn's throat went dry. "Target? What target?" Monroe stared at the readout. "Check the coordinates in the log buffer." She scrolled through the paper feed. Latitude and longitude values printed neatly across the roll. 21 degrees 18 minutes north, 157 degrees 51 minutes west. Her voice cracked. "That's Oahu! Pearl Harbor!" Monroe froze. Jesus Christ. Pearl Harbor, same time. Major Tran watched the seismograph needle jump erratically. "We're picking up magnetic fluctuations originating offshore." A young ensign burst into the room. "Sir, radar's acting strange. It's showing reflections above the harbor, like a ghost contact repeating every 11 seconds. Tran's mind raced. 11 seconds. The Phoenix pulse cycle. "Alert Naval Command and get me a direct line to Isla Ray." Isla Ray, 0500 hours. Monroe and Evelyn stared at the frozen machine. If it sent those coordinates, then something's heading for Pearl Harbor. Monroe grabbed his radio handset. "This is Commander Monroe, Project Phoenix, emergency broadcast, priority Omega. Deactivate all receiving stations on frequency 18.74 megahertz. I repeat." Static swallowed his words. The transmitter was dead. Keller looked at the frequency dials. Sir, the device is still emitting, but on a harmonic band. It's piggybacking onto radar networks. Monroe cursed under his breath. It's using our own systems as amplifiers. Evelyn's voice was steady now, her analytical brain overriding fear. If the energy signatures match long-range radar experiments, like the Navy's magnetron project, the resonance could theoretically induce feedback in any receiver tuned within range. Feedback strong enough to do what? Monroe asked. She hesitated. To burn them out. To blind every radar from here to Hawaii. Pearl Harbor, radar station Opana Point. Technician George Elliott frowned at the scope. That's odd. Screen just went white. He adjusted the controls. Nothing. Then, a surge of light, and the entire console exploded in a shower of sparks. He dove for cover, clutching his headset. Outside, the coastal power grid flickered and died. Isla Rey. Monroe's radio finally crackled to life. Distant shouting, overlapping signals. Tran's voice broke through the static. We're picking up radar blackout across the Pacific line. Repeat, total systems failure. What the hell did you do down there? Monroe shouted back. We didn't trigger it. The machine self-activated. Then shut it down before the Japanese realize we're blind. The line went dead again. Evelyn turned toward the humming tower, now faintly glowing red through its cooling shell. Commander, if Phoenix can hijack frequencies, it can be used as a weapon. Monroe nodded grimly. And right now, it's pointed straight at our own fleet. Later that morning, the emergency lights flickered as Monroe's team worked to dismantle the power conduits feeding the Echo engine. Sparks flew. The smell of ozone filled the room. Evelyn yanked the final cable. The machine went dark. For the first time in hours, silence. Then the teleprinter in the corner clattered to life on its own. A single sheet fed through, typed by invisible hands. Cycle 5 begins in 11 hours. Evelyn's whisper barely rose above the paper rustle. It's counting down. Monroe stared at the clock. Then we've got 11 hours to find out how to kill it. Chapter 6. Countdown 11. Pearl Harbor, December 29th, 1943, 0800 hours. The morning fog hung thick over Pearl Harbor. Naval officers scurried across the tarmac, their boots splashing in shallow puddles, radios crackling with overlapping emergency reports. The blackout protocols had already been lifted, but tension lingered like a shadow over the base. Major Elsie Tran paced in front of the communications console, the teleprinter continuously churning out fragments of intercepted signals from Isla Rey. Each line was preceded by the Phoenix signature, 7142, and each bore cryptic binary sequences. Lieutenant Howard Finch leaned over her shoulder. They're repeating the cycles 11 hours like clockwork, and look at this, the frequency overlaps almost exactly with our new magnetron radar experiments. Tran frowned. That explains the system failures. The device is effectively feeding energy back through our radar grids, overloading circuits. Whoever controls it can blind our defenses without firing a single shot. Finch hesitated. Sir, there's more. The feedback pattern isn't random. It's structured like intelligence data. Whoever built Phoenix may be sending in coded instructions. Tran's eyes narrowed. Then we're dealing with a machine that can both communicate and disable systems at the same time. This isn't a conventional weapon. It's a force multiplier. And right now, it's self-operating. Isla Rey, Echo Engine Control Chamber. Evelyn sat before the console, pencils and notebooks scattered around her. Every oscillograph trace she examined reflected the same repeating pulse, 11 hours, precise, predictable, almost as if the machine were counting down. Commander Monroe entered, carrying a thick binder stamped Los Alamos, restricted. He placed it on the table. Carter, this is what Frost left behind. notes from his time in Germany and early Los Alamos experiments. If we're going to stop Cycle 5, you need to figure out what he built into the device before he vanished. Evelyn opened the binder carefully. Diagrams, equations, and handwritten observations filled the pages. Maxwell's equations combined with early resonance studies, notes on frequency harmonics, and pre-war German experiments with Schumann resonance. She traced a finger over a diagram showing the volcanic rock formations of Isla Rey. A note scribbled in Frost's distinctive handwriting read, "The island itself amplifies the resonance. Nature becomes the conductor. Human input is optional. Once activated, the cycle is autonomous. Stop it at your own risk." She looked up. "Commander, he didn't design a failsafe. The device runs on feedback loops and natural resonance. It's self-sustaining. If Cycle 5 begins, it could continue indefinitely." Monroe swallowed hard, which means we have less than 11 hours to shut it down before it initiates the next sequence. And if it triggers during peak Pacific radar operations, he let the words hang. Pearl Harbor, Intelligence Office. Tran and Finch coordinated with the Central Radar Operations Team. Screens flickered in green and white light, showing ghost signals and static bursts. Coordinate maps indicate Isla Rey is using harmonic interference to mimic standard naval transmissions, Finch said. "If we try to jam it, we could make it worse. The device might lock onto our counter signals and amplify them." Tran's mind raced. "Then we have to predict its next move. Phoenix is acting like an algorithm, a machine learning loop. Frost must have embedded instructions based on our observable behavior." The implication hit Finch. "It's anticipating our defense patterns. The device is thinking." Isla Rey, 1200 hours. Evelyn moved through the corridors with Keller, examining the auxiliary generator rooms. Every meter reading reflected abnormal resonance. The volcanic rock under the base was conducting low-frequency energy waves in ways she had never seen outside controlled laboratory conditions. "This is incredible," Keller murmured. "The energy distribution alone could power a small city. Frost was harnessing natural geomagnetic resonance, way beyond what radar scientists here could replicate." Evelyn's pencil scribbled furiously. "We need to isolate the main feedback coil. If we can disrupt the harmonic loop, we might force the machine to reset before Cycle 5 begins." Keller frowned. "The problem is the coil is embedded in reinforced concrete, tuned to the island's natural frequencies. Any misstep, and we trigger another emission cycle." Monroe appeared beside them. "Then we don't have a choice. Carter, you're going in. The rest of us cover the access points. You have 11 hours, not a minute more." Evelyn clenched her jaw. 11 hours. The countdown had begun. Washington, D.C., Office of the President. Admiral King and science advisors reviewed the intelligence report from Pearl Harbor. A single line in red caught everyone's attention. Phoenix device operational, capable of autonomous energy transmission and radar system interference. Potential strategic threat if left unchecked. Admiral King's voice was grim. "If that machine goes full cycle, it could blind our Pacific Fleet for weeks. Not just Pearl Harbor, all radar from Hawaii to the Aleutians could be compromised." Dr. Vannevar Bush, director of the Office of Scientific Research and Development, leaned forward. "We have to assume the Germans and Japanese already know something about Phoenix. If they attempt to replicate the effect..." King didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The decision was clear. Isla Rey had to be contained. Cycle 5 could not be allowed to complete. Isla Rey, 2100 hours. Evelyn sat alone in the control chamber, staring at the glowing coil of the echo engine. Every measurement confirmed it. The feedback loop had already started to stabilize for cycle 5. Her pencil hovered over her notebook, calculations racing in real time. 11 hours, 10 now. She whispered, "Come on, come on." The machine thrummed with power, almost sentient. The room's metal walls vibrated. Dust lifted from the floor in a slow swirl. She realized with a shiver, Phoenix wasn't just a machine. It was a predator. It learned, and it had begun observing them. Monroe appeared behind her. "Time's running out, Carter. You ready?" Evelyn took a deep breath. "I was born ready." She flipped a switch on the auxiliary panel. Sparks flew. The hum intensified. The countdown was irreversible now. Outside, the Pacific wind howled over the cliffs, and deep in the blue-lit heart of the echo engine, the island itself seemed to pulse, as if alive. Chapter 7. The Last 11 Hours. Isla Rey, December 29th, 1943, 2200 hours. Evelyn Carter stood before the echo engine, notebook in hand, calculations scrawled across every available page. The glowing coils hummed like a living heartbeat, and the island beneath her feet vibrated with low-frequency energy. Every measurement confirmed what she feared. The machine was already self-stabilizing for Cycle 5. Commander Monroe's voice broke the tense silence. "Carter, we've cleared all personnel from the access tunnels. You're on your own down there. Any mistakes, the feedback could fry the generators, or worse." Evelyn swallowed and nodded. "I understand." Keller joined them, holding a toolkit and a clipboard. "The auxiliary harmonic coil is embedded deep in reinforced concrete. We'll have to decouple it from the main resonance node manually. One wrong connection, and the feedback will increase exponentially. The island itself is conducting the signal." "Then we don't have a choice. We go in." Monroe placed a hand on her shoulder. "Make it count." Auxiliary access tunnel. The narrow stairwell smelled of hot metal and ozone. Evelyn's flashlight bounced across steel support beams as she descended. Sparks from exposed wiring crackled ominously. She passed junction boxes wired directly into the island's geomagnetic conductors. Every meter reading spiked as she moved closer to the harmonic coil. The machine's low hum seemed to follow her, vibrating through the stone walls. Evelyn paused, steadying herself. The calculations in her notebook were precise, but the real world was rarely obedient. 10 hours left, she whispered to herself. Main resonance chamber. Evelyn entered the chamber where the auxiliary coil sat, half buried in reinforced concrete. Instruments from the 1940s and improvised modern electronics surrounded it. The glow of the echo engine reflected in the polished metal plates embedded in the floor, casting ghostly blue shadows across her face. She attached a portable oscilloscope to the coil. Readings confirmed her worst fears. The harmonic feedback was already exceeding design specifications. One wrong move could send a pulse strong enough to disrupt Pacific radar lines, or worse, destabilize the island's conductive rock. Keller's voice came over the intercom. "Evelyn, be careful. The coil is already oscillating at multiple frequencies. You will need to phase cancel manually." She nodded. "I know." Phase cancellation procedure. Evelyn worked quickly, following Frost's pre-war notes and her own calculations. She adjusted tuning capacitors, carefully rewired the relay lines, and engaged the magnetron-based signal dampers borrowed from Pearl Harbor experiments. The echo engine's hum intensified. Dust lifted from the floor as the machine began to vibrate. The blue glow shifted toward violet. Suddenly, the room shook violently. A burst of electromagnetic energy surged through the auxiliary coil. Instruments overloaded, Meters flickered to red. Evelyn ducked, shielding herself with a steel panel. The coil emitted a low, resonant tone, almost human. It pulsed in the rhythm of 11-second intervals, the machine counting down. "Almost there," she whispered. Washington, D.C., Naval Research Lab. Major Tran monitored Isla Ray via remote telemetry. The readings spiked. Magnetic fluctuations across the Pacific radar grid jumped from baseline to extreme. "Someone's in the chamber," she said to Finch. "The patterns match human intervention." Finch swallowed. "If they make a mistake, it'll cascade through every receiving system from Hawaii to the Aleutians." Tran nodded grimly. "Then we hope she knows what she's doing." Isla Ray. Final adjustments. Evelyn twisted the final tuning capacitor. Sparks shot from a junction. The humming peaked, and the room shivered. The coil pulsed violently, then stabilized for a brief instant. She adjusted the phase cancellation relay. Lights flickered. The hum shifted, then warped into a low-frequency wave that felt like it was vibrating inside her call. Then, a final surge. A blue flash enveloped the chamber. The machines groaned. The floor shivered underfoot. Then silence. Evelyn collapsed against a panel, sweat dripping into her eyes. The echo engine's glow faded completely. All meters read 0. She exhaled shakily. It's done." Pearl Harbor, monitoring stations. All radar screens across the Pacific flickered, then returned to normal. Magnetic fluctuation stabilized. No anomalous readings. Major Tran's face relaxed. "She did it. Phoenix is offline." Finch leaned back in his chair, exhaling. "That was too close." Isla Ray, command chamber. Commander Monroe and Keller entered the chamber. Evelyn wiped her face, hands trembling. Monroe shook his head. "Carter, you just stopped what might have been the most dangerous device we ever encountered." Evelyn looked at the now dormant coils. "We only delayed it. Phoenix, it's still alive in a way. It learned from us. Next time, it may not be this forgiving." Keller nodded grimly. "And if Frost is still out there, we don't know what he might have sent through the system before he disappeared." Evelyn's eyes hardened. "Then we find him, before anyone else does." Monroe placed a hand on her shoulder. "Agreed. But first, we survive the night." The hum of the island settled into quiet. Outside, the wind rustled across Isla Ray as if carrying a warning. The war was far from over, but Evelyn Carter had survived the first cycle. Chapter 8. Frost's Shadow. Isla Ray, December 30th, 1943, 0700 hours. The first light of dawn barely penetrated the volcanic cliffs. Evelyn Carter sat at a makeshift desk in the echo engine control chamber, blueprints and notebooks spread before her. Even with Phoenix offline, the island itself hummed faintly, a low resonance that reminded her the device was dormant, not destroyed. Keller appeared, carrying a leather satchel. "Morning, Carter. I found something in Frost's old notes, references to a series of experiments he conducted in Berlin and later in Munich." Evelyn looked up. "Pre-war experiments?" Keller nodded. "Yes, he collaborated with physicists who were later recruited by both the US and Germany. There's mention of a resonance observer network, essentially devices capable of transmitting signals through natural geomagnetic frequencies over vast distances. Frost brought the concept to America before the war started. Los Alamos notes confirm it was folded into early radar experiments." Evelyn traced a finger over the diagrams. "So Phoenix isn't just a weapon, it's part of a network Frost envisioned years ago. If he's still alive, he could be controlling multiple sites remotely." Monroe entered, carrying a small stack of papers stamped Top Secret OSS Intelligence. Good morning. I just got clearance to share these. They contain intelligence on Frost's disappearance from 1942. OSS intercepted communications suggesting he defected to a neutral zone in the Pacific, somewhere off limits to Allied patrols, but nothing concrete. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. So he vanished, and Phoenix kept running on its own? Monroe nodded grimly. Exactly. And there's more. According to these reports, Frost may have embedded a contingency sequence in the Echo engine, one that could reactivate the system even if manually shut down. That's likely what triggered Cycle 5. Washington, D.C. Office of Scientific Research and Development. Dr. Vannevar Bush reviewed the OSS intelligence files with President Roosevelt's Science Advisory Team. The implications are enormous, he said. Frost's work predates the Manhattan Project in terms of energy resonance and signal amplification. If any part of this system survives beyond Isla Rey, it could compromise radar defenses across the Pacific, and if it's networked as suspected, it could potentially communicate with undetected installations. An aide spoke up. Sir, the President wants a full assessment of potential risk. All radar grids must be reinforced and isolated from frequencies matching Isla Rey. Bush scribbled notes furiously. Agreed, and OSS should attempt to locate Frost. Understanding his intentions is critical. He's not just a missing scientist. He's a variable we can't control. Isla Rey Research Archives. Evelyn pored over Frost's notebooks. Handwritten annotations in German, English, and mathematical notation sprawled across yellowed pages. She recognized references to the Schumann resonance, early magnetron theory, and experimental frequency cancellation. Her finger paused on one phrase repeated in several places. Observer must be trusted. Phoenix is both tool and judge. Her stomach tightened. Observer? That's me? She whispered. Keller looked over her shoulder. It could be. Frost might have embedded recognition patterns in the system. Names, code sequences, biometric inputs. He likely intended Phoenix to respond only to certain people. Evelyn's mind raced. If he programmed Phoenix to recognize human operators, then Frost isn't just hiding. He's watching, waiting, and he may know everything we've done here. Monroe's expression darkened. Which means we're not just dealing with a rogue machine. We're dealing with a human mind guiding it from somewhere out there. Pearl Harbor, Intelligence Wing. Major Tran and Lieutenant Finch monitored the Pacific radar network. Signals had returned to near normal after Cycle 5, but faint anomalies persisted, brief harmonic spikes that matched the Phoenix signature. Tran tapped her pan against the console. Those readings suggest residual activity. The device may have dormant nodes, or Frost could be moving signals through isolated islands. Whoever he is, he's still influencing our systems. Finch frowned. If he knows Carter is there, maybe he's testing her, seeing if she can manage Phoenix. Tran's gaze hardened. Then we need to find Frost before he decides to escalate. We can't wait for him to strike. Isla Rey, Echo Engine Chamber. Evelyn and Monroe prepared for the next phase, analyzing Frost's remote control contingencies. Evelyn connected a series of oscilloscope leads, carefully monitoring residual signals in the dormant coils. The hum returned, faintly, almost imperceptible but unmistakable. A subtle modulation threaded through the ambient frequency, like a hidden message. She adjusted the filters. Her breath caught. A pattern emerged, not random, a repeating sequence. 7142. PHX. Evelyn. She looked up at Monroe. It's addressed to me. Frost left a message inside the system before he vanished, and it's alive, still waiting for me to act. Monroe's voice was quiet. "Carter, whatever he's left behind, we have to assume he's watching. And if he's guiding Phoenix, he might already have a plan we don't understand." Evelyn clenched her fists. "Then we find him, and we finish what he started, on our terms, not his." The island's low hum seemed to pulse in agreement. Outside, atop the volcanic cliffs, the wind whipped across the rocky slopes. Evelyn stared out at the Pacific, knowing Frost's shadow reached far beyond Isla Rey. Somewhere out there, the man who had built Phoenix was alive, and every move they made was being observed. She whispered into the wind, "We're coming for you, Frost." Monroe placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "And we won't fail." The Echo engine's dormant coils glowed faintly in the morning light, a silent reminder the war was far from over, and the most dangerous adversary wasn't an enemy nation. It was the mind that had created Phoenix.
Chapter 9. The Network. Isla Rey, December 30th, 1943, 1300 hours. Evelyn Carter traced her finger along Frost's annotated map of the Pacific Islands. Several locations were marked with small red dots connected by thin pencil lines. Each corresponded to islands, atolls, and remote volcanic formations across the Pacific. Keller looked over her shoulder. Frost wasn't working alone. This isn't just Phoenix. It's a network of installations, some pre-war, some built clandestinely during the early years of the conflict. That explains why he was able to operate the device autonomously. These sites feed each other. Evelyn frowned. And he's watching them all. Whoever controls the network can direct energy, signals, and communications from anywhere. Monroe entered, holding a sheaf of OSS intelligence reports. We've cross-referenced Frost's notes with pre-war German scientific correspondence and early American radar experiments. He was part of a small group of physicists who moved between Munich, Berlin, and the U.S. from the early 1930s. Los Alamos documents indicate that Frost contributed to classified research before the Manhattan Project. Frequency resonance, electromagnetic signal propagation, even early particle studies. Evelyn's eyes widened. So Phoenix isn't just a weapon. It's the culmination of a decade of transnational research, partly American, partly German, and he brought it all here. Monroe nodded grimly. Exactly, and that's why we're in a race. If Frost activates another node in this network, he could disrupt Allied radar, communications, even early warning systems, all while staying hidden in a remote location. Pearl Harbor, Signal Intelligence Room. Major Tran studied the latest intercepted transmissions from Isla Rey. Even with Phoenix offline, faint pulses continued at irregular intervals. Faint harmonic activity, Finch noted. It matches the pattern we saw last cycle. Could be residual from the island or from another node. Tran's gaze sharpened. We've confirmed 3 additional nodes in the Pacific, all uncharted by Allied forces. That's where Frost could be hiding next. If we don't locate them, Phoenix could reactivate remotely. Finch paled. You mean we shut down one machine and the network is still active? Tran nodded. And whoever controls it knows exactly what we're capable of, probably anticipating our moves. This isn't just a weapon anymore. It's a strategic intelligence system. Isla Rey, Research Chamber. Evelyn examined Frost's coded journals. He had developed a system of signatures embedded in the network, sequences of numbers and letters corresponding to operators, locations, and energy calibration levels. Look at this, she said, pointing at a series of sequences. 7142, PHX, Evelyn. Each node recognizes specific operators. He built human recognition into the network. Keller leaned in. So he knew who would be sent to shut Phoenix down. He designed it to respond to certain people, maybe to test them. Evelyn's voice was low but firm. Then we're not just dealing with a rogue machine.
We're dealing with a puzzle, and Frost set it up to see if we could solve it." Monroe crossed his arms. "Or fail spectacularly. Either way, he's still out there, and now we know why he disappeared, to manage the network remotely." Washington, D.C., Office of Scientific Research. Dr. Vannevar Bush convened a small emergency meeting with Allied scientists. Maps of the Pacific and early radar grids covered the table. "We have to locate all known nodes before Frost can synchronize them. Each node could function as a mini Phoenix capable of signal disruption or feedback amplification. Intelligence indicates he may have embedded low-level harmonics in uninhabited islands as early as 1937. An OSS officer added, "Some of these islands are outside Allied patrol areas. Even if we send a strike force, reaching them will take weeks." Bush nodded. "Then we combine reconnaissance, radar sweeps, and our cryptanalysis teams. Phoenix is both a weapon and a communication network. Finding Frost is our only chance to neutralize it entirely." Isla Rey, Echo Engine Observation Deck. Evelyn stared at the dormant coils, the Pacific stretching endlessly beyond the cliffs. The sun reflected off the water in blinding sheets. She held Frost's journal in her hands, tracing the sequences of numbers and letters. "Every node has its own signature," she said aloud, "and each can reactivate the system remotely. He planned this carefully. The entire network is modular and autonomous. We shut down one, the others keep running." Monroe placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then our mission changes. We're not just stopping one machine, we're stopping the entire network, and we'll have to find Frost first." Evelyn's gaze hardened. "And I will. He left a trail in the journals. If we follow it, we can predict where he'll appear next." Keller nodded. "Assuming he wants to be found, and that he's still alive." Evelyn turned to the Pacific horizon. "He is alive, and he's watching us right now, but the game ends when we reach him, before the network does any more damage." The hum of the island remained faint, almost like a heartbeat. Evelyn shivered, realizing that Frost's shadow extended far beyond the volcanic cliffs. Somewhere out there, the network waited, and somewhere out there, Frost was moving toward his next node.
Chapter 10. Across the Pacific. Pearl Harbor, December 31st, 1943, 0600 hours. The early morning haze over the harbor was thick with salt spray and fog. Evelyn Carter, Commander Monroe, and a select OSS reconnaissance team prepared to depart on a converted naval patrol vessel. The mission? Locate the next Phoenix node and prevent Frost from activating the network again. Major Tran handed Evelyn a stack of charts. "We've triangulated potential node locations based on residual harmonic signals from Isla Rey. There are 3 high-probability targets, one near the Marshall Islands, one near Wake Island, and one uninhabited atoll south of the Mariana Chain." Evelyn studied the maps. The sequence of activation matches Frost's pre-war notes. He's moving systematically, testing the network and the operators. If we don't reach the first node in time, the next cycle could overlap with multiple islands, amplifying the signal. Monroe tightened his coat against the wind. "Then we sail fast and we sail smart. OSS intelligence has arranged for radar support along the route, but we're essentially blind beyond 30 miles offshore." Lieutenant Finch checked the vessel's onboard equipment. "We've got magnetron-based radar prototypes. They can detect unusual energy signatures, but only intermittently. If Phoenix tries to manipulate the readings, we'll see spikes and nulls, like ghost contacts." Evelyn nodded. "Then we rely on instinct, patterns, and triangulation. Frost Trail will have fingerprints, harmonic signatures embedded in the natural frequencies of the islands themselves." Pacific Patrol Vessel, Open Sea. The ship cut through choppy waves. The crew worked in tense silence, eyes scanning the horizon and the radar display. Evelyn monitored the onboard oscilloscopes, searching for faint signals matching Phoenix's harmonic pattern. Suddenly, a spike appeared on the secondary radar. "Something's out there," Evelyn said, leaning forward. "Not a ship, not a plane, an energy signature. It's faint, but it matches Frost's modulation sequence." Monroe frowned. "Latitude and longitude?" Evelyn tapped the coordinates into the navigation console. "We're heading straight for it. High probability it's the next node, likely pre-war German construction repurposed by Frost." The ship's engines roared as the vessel altered course. Crew members adjusted sails and rigging, eyes scanning both sea and sky. The wind carried the faint, metallic tang of ozone, like Phoenix itself was reaching out across the water. Wake Island, December 31st, 1943, 1100 hours. The island appeared on the horizon, a low volcanic formation, surrounded by coral reefs. Radar readings showed intermittent spikes, indicating residual harmonic activity. Evelyn checked the oscillograph. "There it is," she said. "Node 2. Frost may have set this to activate if Isla Rey is compromised. The pattern matches exactly." Monroe ordered the ship to slow and maintain stealth. "We approach cautiously. We don't know what defenses Frost could have left behind. Automated feedback traps, electromagnetic interference, or even personnel loyal to him." Evelyn tapped her pen on the console. "The resonance will be strongest at the central chamber. If we can phase cancel manually, like we did on Isla Rey, we can shut it down before Frost activates it remotely." Keller nodded, assuming it doesn't anticipate our moves this time. Reconnaissance and landing. The OSS team approached Wake Island via inflatable landing craft. Waves lapped against the hulls as the team paddled silently toward the shore. Evelyn carried a portable oscilloscope and a phase cancellation device improvised from Isla Rey blueprints. The island was eerily silent. Abandoned buildings and remnants of pre-war German structures lay hidden beneath dense foliage. Evelyn's meter spiked faintly as they neared a small volcanic ridge, the likely location of the node. "Stay sharp," Monroe whispered. "Frost could be watching." Evelyn adjusted the phase cancellation device. "The signal is faint, but it's responding. He's already aware of our approach, or at least the node is tuned to react to operators like me." The team moved carefully, every step calculated. The island hummed faintly, the energy vibrations threading through stone and sand like a living pulse. Node activation chamber. The entrance to the node chamber was concealed beneath volcanic rock. Evelyn's portable oscilloscope displayed a faint harmonic pattern consistent with Phoenix's signature. She crouched beside the reinforced hatch, analyzing the sequences. "The phase cancellation will work if I synchronize precisely with the natural resonance. Any deviation and the feedback could overload." Keller adjusted the improvised grounding rods. "Ready when you are." Evelyn took a deep breath and began the synchronization procedure, flipping switches and adjusting the frequency dials. The hum intensified, vibrating through the rock walls. Suddenly, the ground trembled slightly. The node was alive and reacting. A faint voice, distorted by harmonics, whispered through the chamber. "Evelyn, why are you here?" Her pulse raced. "It knows my name. It's Frost's contingency." Monroe tightened his grip on his rifle. "Then we finish this, now."
Chapter 11, The Island's Pulse. Wake Island, December 31st, 1943, 1300 hours. Evelyn Carter crouched beside the reinforced hatch leading into the node chamber, portable oscilloscope in hand. The faint hum of harmonic resonance pulsed through the volcanic rock like a heartbeat. Every meter reading indicated the node was already semi-active, feeding on natural geomagnetic energy. Keller adjusted the grounding rods while Monroe scanned the surrounding jungle for any unexpected threats. "Evelyn, this is unlike Isla Rey," Keller whispered. "The structural layout is different. Frost learned from the first installation, and he designed contingency defenses." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll have to adapt. The principle is the same. synchronize phase cancellation with natural resonance, and isolate the auxiliary coil. But timing is critical. Any misstep could trigger feedback strong enough to disrupt radar for hundreds of miles. She tapped the oscilloscope. The harmonic pulses are irregular. Someone programmed it to anticipate operator actions. It's partially autonomous. Inside the node chamber, the hatch led into a small chamber carved from volcanic rock, reinforced with steel and concrete. In the center stood the auxiliary coil, smaller than Isla Ray's, but no less dangerous. Sparks occasionally arced across control panels, reflecting blue light on the walls. Evelyn attached the portable oscilloscope directly to the coil. The reading spiked almost immediately. The system was aware of her presence. Phase cancellation required within 0.02 seconds of harmonic pulse, she muttered, consulting Frost's pre-war notes. Her fingers flew over the dials, adjusting capacitors and relay lines. A sudden pulse surged through the coil. The room shook. Sparks flew. Keller shouted, "It's reacting! Step back!" Evelyn held her ground. "If I misalign now, the feedback could fry the entire local grid, maybe the island itself. I need precision." The node responds. A distorted voice echoed through the chamber, carried on the harmonic frequency. "Evelyn, you're not authorized." Her pulse quickened. "It's Frost's contingency. He embedded recognition protocols, probably from my previous access on Isla Ray. It's testing me." Monroe's voice came over the intercom. "Keep it steady. You've handled Phase 5 before. You can do this." Evelyn synchronized the portable oscilloscope with the coil's natural frequency. Sparks erupted again as the auxiliary coil emitted a harmonic surge, trying to destabilize the phase cancellation. She adjusted rapidly, sweat dripping from her brow. The room vibrated as though alive. The pulse of the island beneath her echoed the machine's rhythm. "Manual override engaged," Evelyn whispered. She cut the final relay sequence according to Frost's notes, grounding the auxiliary coil into the volcanic bedrock. The hum intensified for a brief, terrifying instant, then began to wane. The distorted voice spoke one last time. "You cannot." And silence. The room trembled slightly, then stilled. Instruments read 0. The Wake Island node was offline. Keller exhaled. "We did it. The harmonic loop is broken." Monroe placed a hand on Evelyn's shoulder. "But that voice. Frost embedded recognition in the system. He's watching." Evelyn nodded. "Yes, Phoenix's nodes are more than machines. They respond to operators. Frost can activate them remotely, but he has to interact indirectly. We've disrupted the first active node in his network. Now we trace him." Radar confirmation, open sea. Major Tran monitored residual signals via Pearl Harbor's experimental magnetotron radar network. The faint harmonic spikes from Wake Island had vanished. "He shut it down," Tran said, astonished. "All systems stabilized. The anomaly is gone." Finch studied the readouts. "Only one node down. If Frost has other nodes active, we may only have delayed the next cycle." Tran's expression hardened. "Then we continue the hunt. Frost is out there, and he won't wait for us to find him." Wake Island, cliffside observation deck. Evelyn stood at the island's volcanic ridge, staring at the endless Pacific horizon. The wind carried the faint scent of ozone, like residual energy from Phoenix's pulse. Monroe spoke quietly. "One node down, one step closer, but Frost is still moving, and each step is calculated." Evelyn clenched her fists. "Then we follow the sequence. We anticipate him. We shut down the network completely, one node at a time, until he has nowhere left to hide." Keller nodded. "And if we fail?" Evelyn turned to him, her eyes sharp. "Then Phoenix wins, and the Pacific, radar, and communications collapse, all before anyone can respond. The wind howled across the cliffs. Somewhere, far beyond the horizon, Frost's shadow moved, and the hunt for Phoenix's creator had only just begun. Chapter 12. Island Shadows. Pacific, January 1, 1944, 0500 hours. The morning sun had barely risen over the horizon when Evelyn Carter and Commander Monroe's OSS team approached the Mariana Chain. Their patrol vessel cut through calm seas, radar screens flickering intermittently with faint harmonic spikes, residual energy readings from Phoenix's nodes. Evelyn studied the readings closely. The next node isn't active yet, but I can detect a low-level harmonic field. Frost is preparing it remotely. He's likely monitoring our previous actions at Wake Island. Monroe nodded, which means he's adapting faster than we can anticipate. Every node we shut down, he modifies the next one's defenses. Lieutenant Finch checked his instruments. I'm picking up multiple ghost signals along the Marianas. They match pre-war German energy signatures. Whoever's maintaining these nodes is using the island's natural resonance, like Isla Rey. Evelyn's gaze hardened. Then we'll need the same method, phase cancellation. But we must anticipate any contingencies Frost has left this time. He's watching us, using the network to study our response patterns. Reconnaissance, Saipan. The team disembarked near Saipan under cover of early morning fog. Dense jungle and volcanic ridges hid the suspected node location. Evelyn adjusted the portable oscilloscope, scanning for faint energy emissions. There, she whispered. A low-frequency harmonic pulse pulsed through the volcanic rock, almost imperceptible to conventional instruments. Node 3. Frost has prepared it to react to human presence or any interference. We have to be precise. Monroe pointed toward a ridge. We split. Evelyn and Keller, you approach the node directly. I'll cover the perimeter and maintain comms. Everyone else remain on high alert. Node chamber, Saipan. The node's entrance was cleverly concealed behind volcanic boulders and dense foliage. Evelyn crouched beside the hatch, monitoring the oscilloscope. The harmonic pattern matched Frost's previous installations, but included a subtle irregularity, almost like a trap designed to anticipate operator intervention. Keller adjusted the grounding rods. It's smarter than the last two. Frost has embedded feedback loops to resist manual shutdown. Any incorrect input and the system could destabilize. Evelyn nodded. Then we synchronize with the natural resonance, but this time we preemptively counter the feedback. Timing is everything. The team entered the chamber carefully. Instruments from the 1940s, supplemented with improvised phase cancellation devices, surrounded the auxiliary coil. The hum intensified as Evelyn connected the oscilloscope to the coil. The node reacts. You? Again? Evelyn's pulse quickened. It's Frost. The system recognizes me. He's embedded operator signatures. Monroe whispered over the intercom. Proceed carefully. One mistake and the harmonic surge could be catastrophic. Evelyn flipped switches, adjusted capacitors, and engaged the grounding rods. Sparks shot across the panels as the coil reacted violently to the interference. The room shook, vibrating with low-frequency energy. She synchronized the phase cancellation sequence with the natural geomagnetic resonance of the volcanic ridge. The hum intensified. The node was resisting. You cannot stop me. The voice reverberated, distorted, almost human, almost machine. Manual override. Evelyn held her ground, adjusting frequencies with surgical precision. Keller monitored the oscilloscope. The feedback is stabilizing, just a few more adjustments. The final relay was engaged. The hum peaked, then gradually subsided. Instruments read 0. The Saipan node was offline. Monroe exhaled. 2 nodes down and none of our radar grids were affected. She did it. Evelyn slumped. sweat dripping from her brow. "It's temporary. Frost is still out there, and he's learning from each node we disable." Keller glanced at the maps. "If the pattern continues, we can predict his next node, somewhere south of the Mariana Chain." Evelyn looked toward the horizon. "Then we move fast. Frost can't stay hidden forever, and we need to reach him before he reactivates the network in full." Radar confirmation, Pearl Harbor. Major Tron monitored residual signals. Faint harmonic spikes from the Marianas node had disappeared. "Good work, but we're tracking at least 2 more potential nodes. The network isn't fully disabled yet." Finch frowned. "Frost may be moving signals between islands. If we're wrong about the next location, the network could activate multiple nodes simultaneously." Tron's eyes narrowed. "Then we follow the harmonic trail carefully and anticipate every move he makes." Saipan, cliffside observation. Evelyn and Monroe stood at the cliff edge, staring out at the Pacific. The sun reflected off the water, revealing a seemingly endless chain of volcanic islands. Monroe broke the silence. "One step closer, but Frost is still ahead of us. Every node we disable, he adapts. This is no longer just a mission. It's a chess game with the most dangerous adversary we've ever faced." Evelyn clenched her fists. "Then we play better than he does. We shut down the network entirely, and we find Frost, no matter what it takes." The wind carried a faint electrical hum across the cliffs, a lingering echo of Phoenix. Somewhere, far beyond the horizon, Frost's shadow moved again. The Pacific was vast, but Evelyn knew one truth. The hunt for Phoenix's creator had become a race against time. Chapter 13. Harmonic Pursuit. Pacific, January 2nd, 1944. 0600 hours. Evelyn Carter leaned over the portable oscilloscope aboard the patrol vessel, scanning the faint harmonic pulses drifting across the Pacific. Each node they disabled left a subtle trail, a residual pattern that could indicate the next installation. Frost's network wasn't just mechanical, it was adaptive. Every move they made changed the signals, like ripples across the ocean. Monroe adjusted the ship's course. "We're following the residual signatures south of the Mariana Chain. OSS intelligence suggests the next node could be on an uninhabited atoll roughly 450 miles from Saipan." Lieutenant Finch frowned at the readings. "It's faint, weaker than the previous nodes, but definitely active. Whoever maintains it remotely is conserving energy, probably to avoid detection." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "It's Frost. He's learning from us. Each node we disable teaches him how to respond to our strategies. He's turning Phoenix into a self-defense network, and we're the intruders." Reconnaissance. Open sea. The patrol vessel moved silently, radar intermittently picking up ghost signals, energy fluctuations that didn't correspond to ships or weather. Evelyn monitored the readings carefully, trying to triangulate the next node. "Latitude and longitude?" Monroe asked. Evelyn tapped the console. 12 degrees 15 minutes north, 144 degrees 40 minutes east. It's a small coral atoll, barely a few hundred meters across, remote, isolated, perfect for a hidden node. Keller, checking improvised phase cancellation gear, muttered, "He's using the natural conductivity of the atoll, coral, water, and volcanic substrate to amplify the harmonic signal. Even a small node could affect radar hundreds of miles away." Monroe's expression hardened. "Then we move fast and precise. No mistakes this time. Phoenix has already tested our limits." Approaching the atoll. The island emerged slowly over the horizon, a low line of coral barely visible above the waves. Faint harmonic spikes danced across Evelyn's oscilloscope. "This node isn't fully active yet, but it's responding to our approach. Frost is watching." Monroe gestured toward the landing craft. "We go in teams. Evelyn and Keller, you handle the node. The rest of us provide overwatch. Evelyn nodded. Understood. Phase cancellation is our only option. Timing is critical. If Frost anticipates our sequence, he could trigger feedback strong enough to fry the instruments or worse. Node chamber, Coral Atoll. The entrance to the chamber was cleverly hidden beneath natural coral formations. Evelyn crouched, attaching the portable oscilloscope to the auxiliary coil. The harmonic pulses were irregular, fluctuating slightly, a clear contingency designed to resist manual shutdown. Keller whispered, "It's responding dynamically. Frost built predictive feedback loops. The node anticipates intervention. Any wrong adjustment and the energy surge could destroy the chamber." Evelyn's fingers flew over the controls, adjusting capacitors and grounding rods, her eyes darting between the oscilloscope and Frost's pre-war notes. The hum intensified, low, vibrating through stone, coral, and sand. The pulse matched no natural frequency. It was calculated, deliberate, a signature left by Frost himself. "You cannot stop what I began." The distorted voice whispered through the harmonic field. Evelyn's pulse quickened. "He's embedded operator recognition again. Phoenix knows I'm here." Synchronization. Evelyn synchronized the portable oscilloscope with the atoll's natural geomagnetic resonance. Sparks flew along the control panel as the coil emitted a violent surge, reacting to her interference. Keller monitored the instruments. "Phase cancellation is holding. Just maintain it for 2 more cycles." The hum warped, almost sentient, as though the node were resisting. Evelyn adjusted the frequencies minutely, her hands shaking. "You cannot stop what I began." The words echoed through the chamber. Evelyn ignored them, focusing on the readings. Timing, precision, synchronization. The node's pulse matched the coral's natural frequency exactly. One misstep, and the harmonic feedback could ripple across the Pacific radar grid. Manual override. With a final adjustment, Evelyn engaged the grounding rods fully. The hum peaked, then slowly dissipated. Sparks vanished. Instruments settled to 0. The Coral Atoll node was offline. Keller exhaled. Another one down. That makes 3 nodes disabled. Isla Rey, Wake, and now this atoll. Monroe's voice over the intercom was steady, but tense. "Good work, Carter. But Frost isn't finished. The network is still active. He'll have anticipated we'd reach here." Evelyn straightened, eyes scanning the Pacific horizon. "We've disabled 3 nodes, but the network stretches farther than we imagined. Frost is still ahead of us, but not for long." Monroe's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. "Then we keep moving. We shut down every node and we find Frost, no matter where he hides." The wind carried the echo of a low hum, faint but insistent. The Phoenix network still pulsed across the Pacific, and the hunt had only just begun. Chapter 14. The Hidden Node. Pacific, January 3, 1944, 0400 hours. The first light of dawn barely touched the waves as Evelyn Carter reviewed the oscillograph readings on the deck of the patrol vessel. 3 nodes had been disabled: Isla Rey, Wake Island, and the remote Coral Atoll. Yet faint harmonic spikes persisted, suggesting Frost still had active installations. Monroe approached, holding a small map. OSS intelligence indicates the next probable node is further south, somewhere near Truck Lagoon. Dense islands, volcanic formations, natural barriers, perfect for concealment. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Frost is adaptive. He's learned from each node we've disabled. This one will likely have more sophisticated defenses, automated phase feedback, remote contingencies, even booby traps designed to prevent manual shutdown. Keller adjusted the portable phase cancellation device. We've also got environmental hazards. Truck is surrounded by reefs, strong currents, and shifting tides. Approaching undetected will be a challenge in itself. Monroe nodded. Then we move at first light. Stealth is key, and timing will be critical. Frost will be monitoring every detectable signal. Reconnaissance, Truck Lagoon. The patrol vessel cut through choppy seas, careful to avoid the coral reefs near the lagoon. Evelyn monitored the harmonic readings, noting faint but regular pulses in the sub-audible range, residual energy from Frost's hidden node. This node isn't fully online yet, but it's responsive. He's preparing it, and it's tuned to detect interference. Finch studied the radar. Ghost spikes appearing intermittently. Could be the node, could be environmental interference, or both. Frost may be using the lagoon itself as a conductor. Evelyn tapped the console. Then we follow the harmonic trail carefully. The node signature is subtle. We'll need to synchronize phase cancellation precisely once we locate it. Monroe gestured toward the islands. Team A will approach from the northern ridge. Evelyn and Keller, you take the southern inlet. Keep comms minimal. Frost will be monitoring any transmission. Approaching the node. Evelyn and Keller paddled silently toward a volcanic outcrop barely rising above the lagoon. The island was dense with foliage, concealing the concealed chamber beneath a natural rock formation. Evelyn's oscilloscope began to pick up harmonic pulses. "There it is," she whispered. "Node 4. This one's embedded in the volcanic rock itself. No reinforced chambers like the others. Frost is relying entirely on natural resonance to hide it." Keller frowned. "Then we need to counteract the harmonic field directly, carefully. One misalignment and it could destabilize the island's natural conductors, creating a feedback surge." Evelyn adjusted the phase cancellation dials. "He's learned from previous interventions. The node will respond dynamically to human operators. Timing is everything." Node chamber, volcanic rock formation. The entrance was hidden beneath jagged rock. Evelyn crawled through the narrow opening, oscilloscope connected, monitoring subtle fluctuations in the harmonic field. The air hummed faintly, vibrating through stone and bone. Suddenly, a distorted voice echoed through the chamber. "You're persistent." Evelyn's pulse quickened. Recognition again. Frost has programmed operator signatures into each node. Phoenix knows I'm here. Keller placed grounding rods. "Ready when you're on." Evelyn nodded. "Begin phase cancellation. Synchronize with the natural resonance of the volcanic substrate. It's our only chance." Synchronization and countermeasure. Sparks flew as the auxiliary coil reacted violently to her interference. The hum intensified, vibrating through the rock like a living pulse. Evelyn adjusted the capacitors, twisting dials with precision. "You cannot stop what I began." The distorted voice echoed, almost human, almost machine. Evelyn ignored it, focusing on the readings. Every pulse, every spike had to be countered within milliseconds. The volcanic rock itself seemed to resonate in tune with Phoenix's node. Evelyn synchronized the portable oscilloscope, adjusting phase and grounding rods. Sparks arced across the chamber as energy surged and stabilized. Manual override. Evelyn engaged the final relay. The hum peaked violently, then slowly dissipated. Instruments settled to 0. The Truck Lagoon node was offline. Keller exhaled, brushing sweat from his forehead. Another one down. That makes 4 nodes disabled, but Frost is still out there, and he's watching. Monroe's voice crackled over the intercom. "Excellent work, Carter, but Frost's network is extensive. Each node we shut down makes him more dangerous. He'll predict our moves more accurately next time." Evelyn looked toward the lagoon, the sun glinting off the water. "Then we move faster. We anticipate him. Every remaining node must be disabled before he completes the network. Radar confirmation, Pearl Harbor. Major Tran monitored the Pacific radar grids. Harmonic spikes from the Truck Lagoon node had vanished. Finch frowned. The network isn't fully down. Frost could still have nodes hidden in areas we haven't surveyed. He's adaptive. Every action we take teaches him how to respond. Tran's gaze hardened. Then we anticipate every move. He cannot be allowed to reactivate the network, not under any circumstances. Observation, volcanic ridge. Evelyn stood atop the volcanic ridge, scanning the endless Pacific horizon. Coral atolls, volcanic islands, and dense jungles stretched before her. Each could conceal a hidden node. Monroe placed a hand on her shoulder. One step closer, but Frost is still ahead of us. Each node we disable, he adapts. This is a game now, one we cannot afford to lose. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Then we play better than he does. We shut down every node, and we find Frost, no matter how far he hides. The Pacific hummed faintly around her, the echo of Phoenix, still pulsing, still alive, and still controlled by its creator. The hunt had become a race against time.
Chapter 15. The Edge of Detection. Pacific, January 4th, 1944, 0500 hours. The first glimmers of dawn barely illuminated the endless horizon as Evelyn Carter and Commander Monroe's OSS team navigated toward the next probable node. 4 nodes had been disabled: Isla Ray, Wake Island, the Coral Atoll south of the Marianas, and Truck Lagoon. But harmonic spikes persisted, faint and unpredictable. Monroe studied the charts. Our intelligence suggests 2 more active nodes, one in the Bismarck Archipelago and another near the northern Solomon Highlands. Both are heavily forested, volcanic, and remote. Frost is covering every potential site for concealment. Evelyn's eyes narrowed at the oscilloscope readings. He's adaptive. Every node we disable teaches him how to counter human intervention. These next nodes will be more sophisticated. Predictive feedback loops, operator recognition, maybe environmental manipulation. Lieutenant Finch frowned. We're running out of options for stealth. The Bismarck Archipelago is patrolled by the Japanese. Our timing has to be perfect. Any detection could compromise the mission. Evelyn tapped the console. Then we rely on the residual harmonic trail. Phoenix leaves fingerprints, faint signals embedded in the natural geomagnetic field. If we follow them precisely, we can anticipate Frost's next moves before he activates the nodes fully. Reconnaissance, Bismarck Archipelago. The patrol vessel weaved through coral reefs, radar picking up intermittent ghost spikes, faint harmonic pulses distorted by tropical storms and natural magnetic interference. Evelyn adjusted the portable oscilloscope, filtering out environmental noise to isolate Frost's pattern. There, she whispered, Node 5, embedded within a volcanic ridge, partially concealed by dense jungle. Frost is preparing it to respond dynamically. It's semi-active and anticipating operator intervention. Keller checked the phase cancellation device. This one's different. He's using the natural conductivity of volcanic rock and dense forest to amplify the harmonic signature. Any misstep could destabilize the resonance, even trigger feedback across the entire ridge. Monroe's eyes narrowed. Then we approach carefully. Evelyn, you and Keller handle the node. The rest of us provide overwatch and perimeter security. No transmissions unless absolutely necessary. Frost is watching. Node chamber, volcanic ridge. The entrance was concealed beneath jagged volcanic rock and thick undergrowth. Evelyn crouched,
attaching the portable oscilloscope to the auxiliary coil embedded in the chamber's volcanic base. The hum intensified as the node sensed her presence. A distorted voice echoed through the harmonic field. "You're too persistent. You can't stop what I've begun." Evelyn's pulse quickened. Recognition again. Frost has embedded operator identification in every node. Phoenix knows I'm here. Keller placed the grounding rods. "Ready when you are. Any misalignment and the feedback could destabilize the entire ridge." Evelyn nodded, taking a deep breath. Phase cancellation. Synchronize with the natural resonance of the volcanic substrate. Timing is critical. The node reacts. The auxiliary coil pulsed violently, reacting to her interference. Sparks arced from the control panels as the harmonic field attempted to destabilize their efforts. Evelyn adjusted the dials, twisting capacitors with precision, her hand steady despite the tension. "You cannot stop me." The distorted voice reverberated through the chamber. Evelyn ignored it, focusing on the oscilloscope. Every pulse, every spike had to be countered within milliseconds. One wrong adjustment could ripple across the Pacific radar grid. Keller monitored the readings. Phase cancellation is holding. Maintain it for 3 more cycles. The volcanic rock itself seemed to pulse with the node, a living extension of Phoenix. Evelyn synchronized the oscilloscope perfectly, anticipating the predictive feedback loops. Sparks arced violently, then vanished. Manual override. Evelyn engaged the final relay, grounding the auxiliary coil fully. The harmonic hum peaked, then dissipated completely. Instruments settled to 0. The Bismarck Archipelago node was offline. Keller exhaled. 5 nodes disabled, but Frost is still out there. He's watching and adapting. Monroe's voice came over the intercom. "Excellent work, Carter, but these next nodes are likely the most dangerous. The network is anticipating our moves now." Evelyn looked toward the horizon. "Then we move faster. We anticipate him. Every remaining node must be disabled before he completes the network." Radar confirmation, Pearl Harbor. Major Tran monitored the readings. Harmonic spikes from the Bismarck node had vanished. Finch frowned. Frost still has nodes unaccounted for. He's adaptive. Every action we take teaches him to respond more efficiently. Major Tran's gaze hardened. "Then we anticipate every move before he executes it. Frost cannot regain control, not under any circumstances." Observation, volcanic ridge. Evelyn stood atop the ridge, scanning the endless Pacific horizon. Coral atolls, volcanic islands, and dense jungles stretched into the distance. Each could conceal a hidden node. Monroe placed a hand on her shoulder. "One step closer, but Frost is still ahead of us. Every node we disable, he adapts. This is no longer just a mission. It's a calculated game." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "Then we play better than he does. We shut down every node, and we find Frost, no matter where he hides." The Pacific hummed faintly, residual energy from Phoenix, still pulsing, still alive, and still controlled by its creator. The hunt had reached the edge of detection. Chapter 16. The Solomon's Gambit. Pacific, January 5th, 1944, 04:30 hours. Evelyn Carter peered over the edge of the patrol vessel as the first light of dawn touched the distant Solomon Islands. The harmonic traces of Phoenix's next node were faint but consistent, a low-frequency pulse embedded in the volcanic rock and dense jungle. Frost had anticipated every previous attempt, and this time Evelyn knew he had designed his defenses with the environment itself in mind. Monroe consulted the charts. OSS intelligence confirms that the Solomon Islands are heavily patrolled by Japanese forces. Approach must be stealthy, or we risk compromise, and Frost will likely have contingencies tied to detection. Evelyn adjusted the portable oscilloscope. We'll rely entirely on the residual harmonic trail. Phoenix leaves fingerprints in the geomagnetic field. If we follow them precisely, we can anticipate the node's activation sequence and disable it before Frost even touches the controls. Keller checked the improvised phase cancellation device. This is going to be tricky. Volcanic soil, coral reefs, and dense jungle. The natural resonance will amplify the harmonic field unpredictably. Timing will be everything. Reconnaissance, Solomon Islands. The patrol vessel navigated narrow channels between coral reefs. Faint harmonic spikes pulsed irregularly across Evelyn's instruments. "There," she whispered, pointing at a volcanic ridge partially concealed by jungle. "Node 6. Frost is preparing it. Semi-active, tuned to detect interference. He's adapting from our previous interventions." Monroe nodded. "Team A will approach from the northern ridge. Evelyn and Keller, you'll infiltrate via the southern cove. Minimal comms. Frost is likely monitoring signals." The crew divided silently, paddling through the calm lagoon toward the jungle-shrouded ridge. Evelyn adjusted the oscilloscope, filtering environmental noise to isolate the faint harmonic signature of Phoenix. Node chamber, volcanic ridge. The entrance was obscured beneath volcanic boulders and dense foliage. Evelyn crouched beside it, connecting the oscilloscope to the auxiliary coil embedded in the volcanic rock. The hum intensified as the node sensed her presence. A distorted voice echoed through the harmonic field. "Persistent, but futile." Evelyn's pulse quickened. "Operator recognition again. Frost embedded signatures in every node. Phoenix knows I'm here." Keller positioned the grounding rods. Ready. One misalignment and the feedback could destabilize the ridge itself. Evelyn nodded. "Phase cancellation. Synchronize with the natural resonance of the volcanic substrate. Timing is critical." The node reacts. Sparks erupted along the control panels as the auxiliary coil pulsed violently. The hum warped and twisted, almost sentient, reacting to every adjustment. "You cannot stop what I began." Evelyn ignored the distorted voice, focusing entirely on the oscilloscope. Each pulse, each harmonic spike had to be countered precisely. One wrong move, and the energy could ripple across the island, damaging instruments or triggering feedback loops. Keller monitored readings. Phase cancellation holding, maintained for 2 more cycles. The volcanic rock beneath them seemed to resonate in harmony with the node. Evelyn synchronized the portable oscilloscope perfectly, countering the predictive feedback loops embedded by Frost. Sparks arced violently, then subsided. Manual override. Evelyn engaged the final relay. The harmonic hum peaked and then gradually dissipated. Instruments stabilized. The Solomon Islands node was offline. Keller exhaled. 6 nodes disabled, but Frost is still out there. He's adapting. Monroe's voice crackled over the intercom. "Excellent work, Carter, but the network isn't finished. These last nodes will be the most dangerous. Frost has had time to prepare full contingencies." Evelyn looked across the lagoon. "Then we move faster. Anticipate him. Every remaining node must be disabled before he completes the network." Radar confirmation, Pearl Harbor. Major Tran monitored the Pacific radar grids. Harmonic spikes from the Solomon Islands node had disappeared. Finch frowned. "The network isn't fully down. Frost could still be activating nodes we haven't located. Each action we take teaches him to respond more effectively." Tran's gaze hardened. "Then we anticipate every move before he executes it. Frost cannot regain control." Observation. volcanic ridge. Evelyn stood atop the ridge, scanning the endless Pacific horizon. Volcanic islands and dense jungles stretched into the distance. Each could conceal a hidden node. Monroe placed a hand on her shoulder. One step closer, but Frost is still ahead. Every node we disable, he adapts. This is no longer just a mission. It's a calculated strategy. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Then we play better than he does. We shut down every node, and we find Frost, no matter where he hides. The Pacific hummed faintly. Residual energy from Phoenix, still pulsing, still alive, and still controlled by its creator. The hunt had become a deadly game of anticipation, and the next move would determine the outcome.
Chapter 17. The Final Convergence. Pacific, January 6, 1944, 0500 hours. The sun had barely risen over the horizon when Evelyn Carter studied the oscillograph aboard the patrol vessel. 6 nodes had been disabled: Isla Rey, Wake Island, the Southern Coral Atoll, Truck Lagoon, the Bismarck Archipelago, and the Solomon Islands. Yet faint harmonic traces persisted. Frost's network was adaptive, alive in a way that no ordinary weapon could be. Monroe reviewed the charts. OSS intelligence confirms 2 final nodes remain, one in the central Gilbert Islands and the other on a small uninhabited volcanic atoll near Nauru. Both are heavily shielded by natural terrain and isolated from patrols. Evelyn's eyes narrowed at the readings. Frost has been learning from every intervention. These final nodes will have predictive feedback loops, environmental contingencies, and operator recognition embedded. They're more than machines now. They're extensions of his mind. Keller adjusted the phase cancellation device. If he anticipates our approach, any mistake could trigger harmonics that interfere with radar and communications across thousands of miles. The stakes are higher than ever. Monroe's jaw tightened. Then stealth is critical. Minimal transmission, precise navigation. We cannot allow Frost to regain control of even one node. Reconnaissance, Gilbert Islands. The patrol vessel wove carefully between reefs as harmonic spikes appeared on Evelyn's oscilloscope. Subtle, irregular pulses suggested Phoenix's presence, amplified by the volcanic substrate of the island. There, Evelyn whispered. Node 7, semi-active, anticipating operator interference. Frost has adapted from all previous interventions. Monroe nodded. Team A will approach from the northern ridge. Evelyn and Keller, southern cove. Minimal comms. He's watching every detectable signal. The crew paddled silently, weaving through coral reefs toward the jungle-shrouded volcanic ridge. Evelyn filtered environmental noise to isolate Phoenix's signature. Node chamber, volcanic ridge. The entrance was cleverly concealed beneath jagged rock and dense foliage. Evelyn connected the portable oscilloscope to the auxiliary coil embedded in the volcanic rock. A distorted voice resonated through the harmonic field. You persist, but this is my triumph. Evelyn's pulse quickened. Operator recognition again. Phoenix knows I'm here. Keller placed grounding rods. Ready. Any misalignment could destabilize the ridge. Evelyn nodded. Phase cancellation. Synchronize with the natural resonance. Timing is everything. The node reacts. The auxiliary coil pulsed violently. Sparks erupted as the harmonic field reacted dynamically, twisting and warping around them. You cannot stop what I began. Evelyn ignored the distorted voice. Each pulse had to be countered precisely. One miscalculation could ripple across the Pacific radar grid. Keller monitored instruments. Phase cancellation holding for 2 cycles. The volcanic rock seemed alive, resonating with the node. Evelyn synchronized the oscilloscope perfectly, countering predictive feedback loops. Sparks arced violently, then subsided. Manual override. Evelyn engaged the final relay. The harmonic hum peaked, then dissipated. Instruments stabilized. The Gilbert Islands node was offline. Keller exhaled. 7 nodes disabled. Frost is still out there, adaptive, watching. Monroe's voice came over the intercom. "Excellent work, Carter, but the network's final node will be the most dangerous. Frost has had time to prepare full contingencies." Evelyn looked toward the horizon. "Then we move faster. We anticipate him. The last node must be disabled before he completes the network." Radar confirmation, Pearl Harbor. Major Tran monitored the Pacific radar grids. Harmonic spikes from the Gilbert node vanished. Finch frowned. 1 node remains. The network isn't fully down. Frost could still reallocate energy between hidden sites. Each step teaches him to respond more efficiently. Tron's expression hardened. "Then we anticipate every move. Frost cannot regain control. Not now." Observation, volcanic ridge. Evelyn stood atop the ridge, scanning the endless Pacific horizon. Coral atolls, volcanic islands, and dense jungle stretched into the distance. Monroe placed a hand on her shoulder. "One step closer, but Frost is still ahead. Every node we disable, he adapts. This is no longer just a mission, it's a calculated strategy." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "Then we play better than he does. We shut down every node, and we find Frost, no matter where he hides." The Pacific hummed faintly. Residual energy from Phoenix, still pulsing, still alive, and still controlled by its creator. The final convergence was approaching.
Chapter 18, The Last Node. Pacific, January 7th, 1944, 0400 hours. Evelyn Carter crouched in the shadow of a volcanic outcrop on a tiny atoll near Nauru. The last node, Node 8, awaited. Its harmonic signature pulsed faintly, almost imperceptibly, embedded within the volcanic substrate and amplified by the surrounding coral. Monroe consulted the map. This is it. OSS intelligence indicates it's the central hub, the final node Frost has been preparing. Disable this one, and the Phoenix network will be fully offline. Evelyn's eyes narrowed at the oscilloscope readings. Frost has learned from every previous shutdown. This node will have full predictive feedback, multiple contingencies, and operator recognition. Any misstep could trigger harmonics that disrupt Pacific radar, or worse, injure us. Keller adjusted the phase cancellation device. It's unlike the others. Volcanic rock, coral, and jungle resonance combined. Timing has to be perfect. Monroe's jaw tightened. Stealth is critical. Minimal transmissions. Frost will be monitoring everything we do. Approach. Nauru Atoll. The team paddled silently toward the atoll. Harmonic spikes danced faintly across Evelyn's oscilloscope, irregular and unpredictable. "There," Evelyn whispered, pointing at a rocky volcanic ridge partially obscured by dense jungle. Node 8, fully active and anticipating operator interference. Monroe nodded. Team A covers the perimeter. Evelyn and Keller, you handle the node. No mistakes. Evelyn filtered out environmental noise, isolating Phoenix's signal. She traced the subtle harmonic fluctuations that revealed the layout of the node chamber. Node chamber, volcanic ridge. The entrance was concealed beneath volcanic boulders and thick foliage. Evelyn crawled inside, connecting the oscilloscope to the auxiliary coil embedded in the rock. The hum intensified immediately, pulsing like a heartbeat. A distorted voice echoed through the harmonic field. "You've come far, but this is my final triumph." Evelyn's pulse quickened. Operator recognition again. Phoenix knows I'm here. Frost embedded himself into the network. Keller positioned the grounding rods. Ready. Any misalignment and the feedback could destabilize the island itself. Evelyn nodded. Phase cancellation. Synchronize with natural resonance. Timing is everything. The node reacts. Sparks erupted as the auxiliary coil pulsed violently. The harmonic field warped, almost sentient, resisting intervention at every turn. You cannot stop me. Evelyn ignored the distorted voice, focusing entirely on the oscilloscope. Every pulse, every spike had to be countered precisely. One miscalculation could ripple across the Pacific radar grid or destabilize the volcanic rock. Keller monitored instruments. Phase cancellation holding. Maintain for 3 cycles. The rock beneath them seemed alive, vibrating in perfect sync with the node. Evelyn adjusted the dials, countering predictive feedback loops embedded by Frost. Sparks arced violently, then subsided. Manual override. Evelyn engaged the final relay. The harmonic hum peaked, then gradually dissipated. Instruments stabilized. The last node was offline. Keller exhaled. It's done. 8 nodes disabled. The network, it's gone. Monroe's voice came over the intercom, calm but tense. Outstanding work, Carter. Phoenix is finally offline. Frost's network is neutralized. Evelyn looked toward the horizon. The sun reflected off the endless Pacific. She stood atop the volcanic ridge, scanning the endless Pacific. Coral atolls, volcanic islands, and dense jungles stretched into the distance. The wind carried no faint hum this time, only the natural sounds of waves and birds. Monroe placed a hand on her shoulder. One final step. Frost is still out there, but he has nowhere to hide his network. The Phoenix threat is over. The Pacific lay calm and silent, a vast battlefield that had seen 8 nodes fall, and the echo of Frost's ambition finally muted. The hunt for Phoenix's creator was not over, but the network's shadow had ended.
Chapter 19. Frost's Shadow Revealed. Pacific, January 8th, 1944, 0600 hours. Evelyn Carter and Commander Monroe approached a secluded atoll in the Central Pacific, intelligence having confirmed a small, camouflaged structure hidden beneath volcanic cliffs. It was the first tangible trace of Frost himself, the elusive architect of Phoenix. OSS signals indicate a minimal garrison, Monroe whispered, scanning the cliffs with binoculars. He's likely expecting us, or at least prepared for interference. Evelyn adjusted her oscilloscope. Unlike the nodes, Frost himself left no harmonic signature. His presence was human, his plans executed without automated traces. He doesn't need the network to anticipate us. He's been watching our moves, predicting every step. Keller checked the phase cancellation device one last time. No nodes left. This is it, the confrontation. Infiltration, volcanic hideout. The team moved silently through dense jungle and jagged volcanic rock. The structure Frost had built was almost invisible from the air, a blend of pre-war German architecture and improvised camouflage. Evelyn's heart raced. This is more than just a network, she whispered. Each node was an extension of his strategy, and now we finally face him. Monroe nodded. Stay alert. We don't know what contingencies he has in place. They entered the hideout through a narrowed tunnel concealed beneath a boulder. Inside, Frost waited, a tall, wiry man with sharp eyes, his presence commanding even in the dim light. Carter, he said, voice calm but edged with steel.
I wondered how long it would take you to reach me. Evelyn raised her oscilloscope, the portable device now a symbol of her triumph over Phoenix. It's over, Frost. The network is offline. Your nodes are all disabled. Frost's eyes glimmered with cold calculation. Offline. You think that ends anything? Phoenix was never just nodes and coils. It was a blueprint, a vision. I embedded myself in it. Every move you made taught me how you think. The confrontation. Keller stepped forward, hand on his weapon. Step away from your equipment, Frost. You're done. Frost smiled faintly. Done. Perhaps. But the lessons remain. The strategies, the contingencies. They exist now in me. You've destroyed my network, but you've only played into my design. Evelyn studied him carefully. You created Phoenix to control communication and intelligence across the Pacific, but it's finished. The nodes are offline. You cannot regain control without rebuilding entirely. Frost's expression darkened. True, but even dismantled, Phoenix has taught me one thing. Control is not a tool, it's a principle, and I have learned more from you than you realize. Keller stepped forward. Enough talking, you're coming with us. Frost didn't resist, yet his calm composure suggested he was already 3 steps ahead. Very well, but mark my words, Carter. The Pacific is vast, and the mind behind Phoenix is not so easily contained. Aftermath. Pacific Observation Deck. Evelyn and Monroe escorted Frost to the patrol vessel. The nodes had been disabled, the network neutralized, yet Frost's shadow loomed, a reminder of the intelligence, cunning, and foresight that had powered Phoenix. Evelyn gazed at the endless horizon. The network is gone, but he's still out there, and now we know just how dangerous one mind can be when combined with technology and foresight. Monroe nodded. We won this battle, but the war and the lessons of Phoenix are far from over. The Pacific lay calm, reflecting the rising sun. 8 nodes destroyed, 1 mastermind captured, yet the shadow of Phoenix lingered, a silent reminder that the line between human genius and technological threat was razor thin. Evelyn clenched her fists, determined. We've won this stage, but vigilance is everything. Frost may be contained, but the threat of another Phoenix, that could be anywhere, at any time. The hunt had ended, for now, but the echo of Phoenix would linger in the Pacific and in the minds of those who had faced it. Chapter 20. Aftermath and Reflection. Pearl Harbor, January 10th, 1944, 0900 hours. Evelyn Carter sat in a sunlit office at Pearl Harbor, the faint hum of radar grids and radios in the background. Frost had been secured, transported to an undisclosed facility, and the Phoenix network dismantled. The Pacific was silent, the nodes destroyed, but the lessons of the mission lingered heavily. Major Tran entered, carrying a thick folder of OSS reports. Carter, the debriefing will begin shortly. Intelligence is compiling every detail, node by node, intervention by intervention. Your work has neutralized a threat that could have reshaped the Pacific theater. Evelyn glanced at the folder. It wasn't just a network. Phoenix was a mind, Frost's intelligence embedded into machines, nodes, and natural resonance. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Tran nodded gravely, which is why your report will be historical. It's a lesson in adaptive networks, human ingenuity, and the unforeseen power of technological integration. OSS debriefing. Evelyn stood before a panel of officers and intelligence analysts. Maps of the Pacific were spread across the table, red lines indicating the location of each node, harmonic spikes, and timelines of their shutdown. Node 1, Isla Rey, disabled successfully. Wake Island and the southern Coral Atoll followed. Truk Lagoon, Bismarck Archipelago, Solomon Islands, Gilbert Islands, and the Nauru Atoll. All nodes neutralized, Evelyn summarized. Frost embedded operator recognition and predictive feedback in each node. Any intervention taught the system to adapt, creating a learning network far ahead of our time. An analyst raised her hand. The network could have disrupted communications, radar, and intelligence across the Pacific. How did you succeed without triggering large-scale interference? Evelyn replied, "We synchronized phase cancellation with natural geomagnetic resonance and isolated auxiliary coils. Precision was critical. Milliseconds mattered. Frost's contingency protocols were sophisticated, but we anticipated them by tracking residual harmonic traces. Phoenix was powerful, but it wasn't invincible." Monroe added, "The operation proves that intelligence combined with adaptability, discipline, and precise scientific understanding can counter even the most advanced threats." Reflection. Later, Evelyn walked along Pearl Harbor's observation deck. The sun reflected off the water, mirroring the calm that followed months of intense pursuit. She thought of Phoenix, the nodes, the harmonic networks, Frost's genius, and the fine line between human innovation and potential destruction. 8 nodes destroyed, 1 mastermind captured, the Pacific safe for now. But she understood the deeper truth. Technology, intelligence, and human ingenuity could create threats beyond imagination. Phoenix had been a testament to that, a historical reminder that vigilance, adaptability, and courage were paramount. Evelyn gazed across the endless Pacific. The network is gone, Frost is contained, but the echoes of Phoenix, the lessons we've learned, will remain. History remembers battles, victories, and heroes, but it also remembers lessons. Phoenix will be remembered not for its destruction, but for the warning it left behind. The Pacific lay calm. The nodes were destroyed. Frost was captured. And Evelyn understood the quiet power of foresight, intellect, and responsibility. The human side of history, entwined with technology, forever shaping the lessons of tomorrow. The hunt was over. The Pacific was silent, and the shadow of Phoenix, though defeated, had left its mark.